Hello and welcome to Hot Topics in Hypnotherapy. My name is George Kappas and I'll be your host today on the show that explores new ideas, interesting people, and important developments in the field of hypnotherapy. Today we're going to learn about reverse speech technology with our guest David John Oates. So welcome, David. Glad you're here.
Thank you very much.
All right, so before I start, let me brief you, and that is that we have had in the American Hypnosis Association guest speakers since the late 70s. We have a list of probably about 300 guest speakers. All have done a 1-hour presentation. And in 1998, you came here for the first time and did a presentation on reverse speech technology, introduced us to it. And I never really got a chance to tell you, you have been the most interesting topic presentation I have ever experienced in the 30 years of having guest speakers here. I must tell you, you are my favorite one in the entire AHA library. You're the one I tell people, you are the best. And not just you're okay. But reverse speech technology is the most interesting, potentially societal changing thing I've ever heard. And I consider myself a subconscious behaviorist. We're fascinated here with anything that the subconscious controls. And this idea of reverse speech is just phenomenal. So I want to introduce our web TV audience to this reverse speech.
Thank you.
I know 2 days from now you're going to give another AHA presentation. For any of you in the American Hypnosis Association, I think this will be his third lecture in the library. Watch this. Of course, join us this Saturday when he does it. And then Sunday, you're having an advanced course on teaching people how to actually do this as therapists.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
So that said, tell me again, what is the basis of reverse speech?
Well, the name reverse speech refers to hidden messages in our speech. The theory is that as we're speaking, we're creating the sounds of our speech in such a way that we're saying two things at once, one forwards and one backwards. This is a natural function of language. All of us are doing it all the time. What we do is quite literally, we record people speaking and run the tapes in reverse. And when you run the tapes backwards, about once every 30 seconds or so, you can hear a very clear phrase amongst the gibberish. That is what is happening on the conscious as well as the unconscious level. The unconscious mind is speaking in reverse, embedded backwards into the sounds of our speech.
Right. All right. This is the part. I could spend the whole show just on this one idea because this is great. Let me make sure I got it and they got it. And you're from a funny land. Australia, where it's hard to understand anything you say. By the way, reverse speech isn't just because in Australia everything is backwards. The water goes backwards, the speech goes backwards.
It does too.
So here's what I love about it. So what you're saying, what your proposal is in this model is that our subconscious mind, while we're walking and talking and everything, it's beating our heart. It's pushing our blood around. We're not thinking about any of that. It's telling our breathing how to regulate. But as we're talking, it also has its own commentary. It's making a verbal commentary on what we're saying, how we're feeling.
Exactly correct.
And it's in reverse.
It's in reverse.
Right, and it doesn't matter what we're saying forwards. It's not just the words backwards.
Oh, no.
That's the interesting part. It's a separate commentary, not just, it's actual like if you had a little guy on your shoulder who was telling the truth about what you're saying, whether you're saying the truth or not. So in a sense, the societal changing part is that if it wasn't in reverse, if we had a way to hear it, expose it, in a sense, nobody could lie again.
Nobody could lie at all. No,
right, because you'd be constantly telling on yourself about how you really feel.
Exactly right. It's a constant voice of truth that is continually occurring as we are speaking. If we're lying forwards, we'll get the truth in reverse. If we're hiding facts from our conversation, they can also be in reverse. One of the great things about it too is that if we have issues, psychological issues or behavioural issues, reverse speech can often give us the unconscious reasons for those issues. It's whatever is happening in the unconscious has the potential to appear backwards in our speech.
Right, so sometimes our reverse speech is congruent to what we're saying. I mean, we feel and we're honest and congruent with what we're saying. Like, I'm happy you're here, and I might be saying reverse, I'm so happy. Right? Or I could say, I'm happy you're here, and in reverse I'd be saying, get this guy out of here, right? And depending on how I'm feeling, how congruent I am, right? And you really don't know, right? And none of us know because we've all we're sort of actors.
That's right.
And we learned early in life to say one thing and sometimes feel another. And then the other thing is that what you're saying is that it reveals maybe information we don't know.
Sure.
Not that it knows everything. And this is a point I have with a lot of things. Like we have ideomotor response, where a pendulum swings yes or no, the Ouija board, and it reveals things that aren't known to us. It doesn't mean those things are facts. It just means that's what the subconscious feels or believes.
Correct.
So it's going to give us feelings and emotions, not necessarily like it's absolute truth, but it's more emotional based. Was that correct?
It's truth according to the individual.
Right, what I believe, how their reality.
Exactly correct. Their reality, their viewpoint, their perspective. It's interesting when you say sometimes it can tap into things we don't know, because at the deepest levels of reverse speech, we're actually tapping into a common collective unconscious knowledge, where we're tapping into that universal mind, which is quite fascinating.
Okay, so yes, and I again, those are issues I think are bigger issues. Is does the ideomotor response have facts, or is it just giving beliefs? I'm on the belief camp. It's really revealing our inner beliefs and the models that run our thinking. So there's really different applications, different levels. One is societal.
Sure.
And I know in the longer format lectures, you give a lot of examples where you play something and then you reverse it. And I'm going to ask you to do a couple today. And I have my favorites from the years past, and then you have some. So one is societal, meaning that in today's society, we don't listen to our politicians live. They're all recorded.
Right.
And so they make all these public statements, crafted statements. But with reverse speech, it has the potential to tell us how they really feel about what they're saying.
Oh, sure.
Right?
Oh, yeah. The classic example is the Bill Clinton sex scandals that were from many years ago.
That's my favorite clip, right.
Well, we're going to be playing that clip.
Right.
And where Bill Clinton was obviously not wanting the people to know that he was having this affair, but yet back was in his speech, there were these constant hints. And I remember I was tracking Bill Clinton several months before the Monica Lewinsky scandals ever went public, and he was telling us in his reverse speech exactly what was going on. And I went public on a few radio shows, and I was saying, listen, I don't know what's happened to Bill Clinton, but I've got all these explicit sexual reversals on him, and I was accused of bias by the radio show host. And then, of course, a few months later, the sex scandals broke, and reverse speech was vindicated. But it's got an amazing potential to look into the minds of our politicians and find out what they're really thinking and really feeling. Some reversals on Barack Obama are very revealing as to what his real intention are.
Interesting. Yeah. So there's a huge potential right there. That if you could never make a public statement without your true feelings about that statement being known, it could dramatically change society.
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, the bottom line of reverse speech essentially means that the human mind is no longer private. We now have a reliable way of going into the human mind and finding out what's really going on and really transpiring. It takes us a whole lot further than the polygraph, which will tell us the truth or lie. This will go a whole lot further and tell us.
Right, because it reveals. It's not just yes or no.
Right.
Now, do you think that if your subconscious knew that it was being heard, that it could learn to then lie in reverse?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I personally don't believe so.
No?
No, I personally don't believe so. I think that the unconscious communicates the truth no matter what. And even though we can become very skilled at lying, and some people are brilliant at it.
I'm a good liar.
Right. The unconscious is still going to betray the truth in some way, shape or form, either through that subtle slip of the tongue or a subtle body language movement. But now, of course, we have reverse speech, which I don't believe it can be trained to lie.
Okay, so now the other, there's so many applications, but another, I think, important application is in relationships, and like in relationship counselor.
Sure.
Okay, because here's my take on it, and again, since I heard about reverse speech, and I've been constantly thinking about it. And that is that, okay, so you're talking to your partner, and it may be a benign conversation, or it could be a heated argument, but you're saying, listen, honey, do you want to go to the thing tonight? And they'll say, sure, whatever you want. But they could be saying in reverse, I can't stand you tonight, right? I'm just, I can't, right?
Sure, absolutely.
And so the other part is we not only speak in reverse, but we hear in reverse. We
Yes.
just don't know we hear in
we
reverse.
do.
We're not that aware, but we're responding to the reverse as well.
Exactly correct. Reverse speech is a communication process. We're
Right.
constantly hearing the reversals of each other.
Right.
And we're recognizing it as intuition or that gut feeling.
Right.
But if you've ever been in a conversation with someone and suddenly the conversation goes off in a tangent and you think, where did that come from? Many times you may be actually hearing and responding to the reverse speech.
Right. So, like when I'm in a conversation with my wife, and sometimes I relate it to like, I instantly feel odd about the conversation, right? And so my theory is, she's saying something different in reverse.
Right.
This is not what she's saying.
I think you're absolutely right.
And vice versa.
Right.
You know, when you're just sort of placating, but you're really communicating all over the place, and then they just sort of get a weird vibe.
Right.
So that if people, even if they didn't know specifically about what the reverse was, just knowing that it's there makes you more aware of when you're getting those incongruent signals, that kind of that intuition.
Sure, yeah, exactly right. You know, it's interesting because many times I can find entire conversations in reverse where someone will say a statement, then the reverse will respond, and then you get another response to that. And particularly when someone is in very, very good rapport, if you've got two people in very
So
good
if they're
rapport.
close rapport, do you think they hear more of the reversal?
Oh yeah, I think so.
Yes,
oh,
the intimacy.
Yes. Yeah, rapport is a very key factor. In point of fact, when rapport is high is where you get the most number of reversals. You can get reversals once every 5 seconds with two people in high rapport. If rapport is not good, they'll drop off to once every 30 or once every minute, 30 seconds every minute.
And speaking of relationships, like flirting, can you imagine the reversals involved in flirting where you say something like, "Oh, you look nice today," right? And, but what are you communicating, and what are they hearing?
Right.
You know, and perhaps their receptiveness to what you're saying.
You know, I've got an example in one of my books where a boy meets girl and they're talking, I forget what they're talking about forward, and in
By the way,
reverse
this is
you've
Los
got...
Angeles. Boy meets everybody out here.
Oh, right. Boy meets person. And they're talking about the weather, but in reverse you've got this whole sexual interplay running. You know, I think I like him, or do I like him? Yes, I do like him, and yeah, he would be good to kiss, or
Right.
more
Or the
explicit
creep
than that.
factor, where someone says, "How are you?" but they're thinking some creepy thought, right? And you're picking up on the creep
Right.
factor.
And you may get a zap from talking to the person, like, "Oh, gee, what did he just say?"
Right.
You know, and you say, "Gee whiz, I felt something there." And many times you're hearing the reversal and reacting to the backwards phrase.
I love this. We're going to take a short break, but when we come back, we're going to hear a clip, and we're going to just find out more from David John Oates in reverse speech technology. Stay tuned. But reverse speech technology is the most interesting, potentially societal changing thing I've ever heard.
Right.
And I consider myself a subconscious behaviorist. We're fascinated here with anything that the subconscious controls. And this idea of reverse speech is just phenomenal. So I want to field of hypnotherapy. Today, we're going to learn about reverse speech technology with our guest, David John Oates. So welcome, David. Glad you're here.
Thank you very much.
All right, so before I start, let me brief you, and that is that we have had in the American Hypnosis Association guest speakers since the late 70s. We have a list of probably about 300 guest speakers. All have done a 1-hour presentation. To introduce our web TV audience to this reverse speech,
Thank you.
I know 2 days from now you're going to give another AHA presentation. For any of you in the American Hypnosis Association, I think this will be his 3rd lecture in the library. Watch this. Of course, join us this Saturday when he does it. And then Sunday, you're having an advanced course on teaching people how to actually do this as therapists.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
So that said, tell presentation. And in 1998, you came here for the first time and did a presentation on reverse speech technology, introduced us to it. And I never really got a chance to tell you, you have been the most interesting topic presentation I have ever experienced in the 30 years of having guest speakers here. I must tell you, you are my favorite one in the entire AHA library. You're the one I tell people, you are the best. And not just you're okay. Hello and welcome to Hot Topics in Hypnotherapy. My name is George Kappas and I'll be your host today on the show that explores new ideas, interesting people, and important developments in the